Here now with more Fox News contributor Jonathan Turley. You know, a simple question, Jonathan. You're a fair-minded guy. Do you believe that the investigations into Hillary Clinton, when you look into her servers, deleted emails, the dirty dossier, then, of course, the FBI's handling of that dossier and using it without verifying it, and then, of course, the Bidens, I mean, Hunter himself implicates his father all over the place, and then we have photographs that prove that Joe lied about knowing Hunter's associates or anything about the businesses. So my question is, do we have equal justice under the law in those three examples?
Well, I think the record is clear that there's been political bias at the FBI. The FBI itself has recognized that. They have removed key officials like Peter Strzok and others who showed incredible bias in their emails and in some cases in their actions. So I think there's reason to be concerned. It's not a conspiracy theory. The department itself has moved on these issues. What's really disturbing about the Hunter Biden matter is that this was similar to what we saw with when Houdini made his elephant Jenny disappear every night on the stage. Well, she really didn't disappear. She never left the stage. But Houdini knew that the audience wanted her to disappear. And the Bidens have been brilliant in handling this scandal. They knew the media wanted this scandal to disappear, and they gave them room for that illusion. Now they're running out of time and they're running out of space because the House is going to launch this investigation. And I think that what we're going to see is going to be disturbing. You know, the fact is that the president has been contradicted repeatedly. It does appear that his repeated denials that he never spoke to his son about his business deals is false. I mean, we have an actual recording of him calling his son to say that he wanted to talk to him about the media investigation into his business deals. We have an individual who had said under oath that he met twice with Joe Biden to talk about the foreign dealings with his son and his family. So at a minimum, what we have is the appearance of a multi-million-dollar influence peddling scheme involving the Biden family, but also the President of the United States. And yet Merrick Garland has refused to appoint a special counsel. I don't question the appointment of a special counsel on the Trump issue. He is a presidential candidate. That's within the strike zone. One can defend that. But you can't defend it if you're not appointing a special counsel, in my view, in the Hunter Biden matter. That involves the sitting president of the United States.
And Congressman Comer said this is an investigation of Joe Biden. And the deeper issue here is you have Hunter and the family making millions of dollars. Hunter has no experience at all. And Joe, we now can connect to Hunter. We can connect them financially now. And the question is bigger. In other words, is the reason that he canceled the Keystone XL pipeline but gave a waiver to the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, is that because of the money that the Bidens made from Russia? Or is he compromised with China? In other words, do we have a president potentially compromised with foreign nations and adversarial countries?
Well, I think that's the reason we need to have finally this investigation. The Democrats blocked the investigation earlier in Congress of these transactions. You know, foreign countries know about these transactions. They know about a lot of these issues. It's the American people that need to know exactly what the scope of this is, and that includes these transfers. There's a lot of information that will come with that information, and the American people will now be able to see it. But the key here is not just that it's a matter of being compromised, but whether the president has knowingly and repeatedly lied to the American people. They have a right to know.
I think the bigger danger, though,
is the White House
is if they paid to play, he sold out his office. That would be an impeachable offense if true.
That is a great danger, yes.
All right, Jonathan Turley, always love having you. Thank you. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.